and spring weather in the last few days. And we are also YouTube live right away. And this is the seventh edition of the Wednesday Dialogue series of the Consulate General of India event series. And we are very grateful for the continuous and strong support from the diaspora and also the international audience for this series. So we are very encouraged. And today we have very, very special personality, the current Consul General of India, Shri John Ruolngul. So he has just taken office in end of December, and so he has kindly given us the time for today, and we are very grateful for that. Thank you very much, sir, for being here in our platform today. And so we are going to get to know more about sir and also the way he has walked through from his childhood and also the career pathway and where he is now, what are those very successful things and also what has been challenging and also special things that he has come across in his career, and also from his early times. So the Wednesday Dialogue series is a combination of having inspiring personalities who gives us an insight into their life and career, and generally also to make sure that the motivation and inspiration from where they have come across, but also they themselves then after this event becomes an inspiration and motivation for many of the people down and young people, students and general diaspora and everyone. So that's the basic office, and also to show to the world and especially to Germany and people down here as well, who are those from persons of Indian origin, but it can be also those who are closely working with India or having special interest with India and German relationship. That's also something we carefully look at, and then how those are some of the criteria we look at when we choose the personality of the month. Not taking much of the time. Thank you very much for everyone. So I'll just give you some housekeeping instructions to make sure that it is a structured flow without any interruption. First thing is we would like to split the whole event into three parts, which usually we do. The first part is get to know the personality. So where they come from, about their early days and entering into the education, career, and further path, and then the career path. How do they go to that? How did they choose? Whether there were any inspiring personality, or what has been the pathway. And the third part is more about also how they are looking at current future and current changes. What are the things that they are going to see in the next coming months if they are here, in terms of, for example, today's guest, he's just taken office. What are his plans and ideas, how he's going about. And so then we have, so for each and every part we have interaction with the audience. So that's the specialty of it. There is a no monologue. It's not about one-to-one interview or something. It's a dialogue. That's why we kept it as dialogue series. So after that, everyone has an opportunity to speak to the personality and actually clarify their maybe their doubts or specific things that they are very much interested in. Okay, let's then move on. Sir, thanks a lot and for being here today. um, it's always our tradition that more we introduce you rather than we always request humbly the guest himself or herself to introduce in such a way that probably we do not know much of things. But what I know is that you were born and brought up from Churanchandpur from Manipur, and you are from the Mizo community, and you are eldest of four sons in the family. So that's the information I could gather, and hope it's correct. And can you just describe that early, let's say your childhood when you are very young? Do you remember some of those specific, nice things even today you remember?
Yeah, first of all, Bala, thank you very much for continuing with this Wednesday's Dialogue series. And I must also thank Mr. Riger, my predecessor, for initiating this thing. I mean, first, I'd like to say that you spoke of inspiring personalities coming onto the program. I don't know if I can call myself that. But anyway, regarding my childhood, I mean, of course, all I can recall is it was a happy childhood. I grew up in a village in Manipur. I think many of you, or most of you, haven't been to that part of India. It's a remote corner of India in the state of Manipur. Manipur is just next to Assam. It's in northeast India, and we are quite close to the border with Myanmar. We are, in fact, geographically closer to Southeast Asia than to Delhi or to mainland India. So I grew up in this small village called Sialmat, that is in Churachandpur district in Manipur, which is the second town of Manipur. And I would say that it was a happy childhood, very carefree. I mean, I was in the village. I remember, like when you go to the schools, you were like all kids. You all wanted for the to go home from the school, and the first thing we would do was go home, leave our bags or books, and then go out, fishing or hunting. So we were just close to the natural jungle and the forest. So that I recall our childhood was spent mostly like that. I hardly recalled when learning the ABCs or all those academic things. My recollection of childhood is more of, this enjoying the natural village life.
Thank you.
Grew up in such a place, and I started all my schooling was done in my hometown of Churachandpur.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that. I think then you must be the most or the luckiest person probably in the world that, you don't have to carry on your ABC rather than, you just think more about nature. I think many of the child today, probably when you ask them in 30 years what they remember, probably they would say the 20 kilos of the school books they have to carry probably. That's what probably burdening them. Um, Excellent, sir. Let's look at that itself. Actually, schooling. What was it for you? We were told that there was nothing that you wanted for a long dream or you wanted to become something. You just went to school because everybody went to school, and you just was there. As you rightly said, it's fun. You just want to spend your good time with your friends, and then the studies is part of it. But you didn't have something, okay, I want to become in 20 years this, so I have to be this way, good way, and things like that. Was it so for you?
Yes, to be very frank, maybe it was the time we grew up in. I don't know, but it's not like I had this ambition to be maybe a pilot or a doctor or anything like that. To be very frank, I didn't have any driving ambition while I was in school, till high school. So it was like you say, to put it simply, everybody went to school, so I also went to school. But I didn't do too badly in the school also, and I think my parents probably wanted me to become a doctor, like a typical Indian parents, because during my time we had this matriculation up to class 10, and after that, before going to university, we had the pre-university. So after the matriculation, I took science subjects. So for 2 years, I studied what we call PU science or pre-university science. So that was basically, if you want to go into the medical line, they have a background in science. But to cut a long story short, after that, I really am not a science student. Math, for example, I barely passed. I basically know only how to multiply, divide, add, and subtract. That's it. So it simply was not the line for me. But after I finished my PU science, I, of course, somehow passed that also. Then I shifted over to literature.
Okay, we will come back to that. And I am very grateful that I have found one more person in the world who also did very badly mathematics. So that's I'm happy. I have a companion now. I also
Believe
just passed in my 10th board exam, actually. So I would have failed. So anyway, so the point here is we know that your father is a pastor.
Yeah.
So what was that for you, that his influence at that early age? Do you remember something that as a pastor he specifically taught you certain things, or the living of him himself, something you observed and you took it at that early stage that even today you are following, and something that he has given you, even he has not given you like an hard teaching, but through your observation of your father, something you say, even today I'm just very lucky that I could observe that, and that's something I'm following.
Yes, my father was a pastor. Pastor is a priest in the church, a pastor, and he was a very inspiring figure. I would say he was my hero in that sense. And I was lucky to grow up in a pastor's family. It was a God-fearing family. So as far as morals and the what you grow up with as a child, you absorb everything from your parents. So I was lucky in that sense, and he was quite well known in our community, even outside also. And I think I would he is no more here, but he continues to inspire me. After, when your parents pass away, then you realize how much you miss them and how much influence they have had on you. I mean, if you ask me this question when I was in college or shortly after, like any person, you might say, okay, it's I mean, you are a little bit rebellious, but as time passes on, whatever morals that I have with me, I think it was because thanks to my father, and because he brought us up in a very good moral and godly atmosphere. So I think that has formed a part of what I am today. And
Okay.
yeah, it has shaped my future also, the faith which was instilled in me because of that upbringing.
Right.
It's still what
Thank you.
sustains me even now. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, sir, for that. And let's moving into that. You said clearly that science is something not for you, and all the mathematics, whatever it is, and schooling. But somewhere during your pre-university, probably with your friends, or your mates, classmates, something you might have discussed or something you have seen, which probably inspired you to look at it and say, okay, if science or doctor or engineering, whatever is not the case, what I'm going to take. And was there any pressure at that point of time for you, from your let's say, from your family or anyone, for that you have to do this, or you said, no, this is what I want to do?
Not really, Bala, because I can say that I was never under any pressure from my parents in that sense. Yes, I mean, I love literature. I love reading, and literature is something I have always loved, whether it's in my own language or in any other language. So, but I must say that there was no pressure on me from my parents to specifically go on this line or to be that. But I said they wanted me to be a doctor. That was also mentioned just in passing. And like I said, when I was doing my schooling or class 10, it was not like I had an ambition to be something. So they asked me, I kind of said, okay, you take science. So I took that. But after that, I just found that it was not really my line. It was not what I was. So I shifted over to literature for my graduation, for my BA. So in that sense, there was no pressure from my parents or anybody that, you know, you have to be there. But maybe it was also the time, as I said. Now, as a parent, when you have your own kids, we want them to be something or to go on this line. I don't know if that's good or not, but I think I have observed something of that from my parents, because I have a son and a daughter, and we have never really pressed them to be something. We have basically told them, look, we can give you an education, and it is up to you to do what you want once you graduate. So we have given them that freedom. I don't know if that's good or bad. Sometimes when I look back, I think maybe we should have pressured them a little bit to go on this line or that line. It might have been better for them. But I mean, it has always been instilled in me from my parents that you don't pressure your children. I mean, you let them do what they want. I mean, that I think makes for a more balanced human being, that you're not under pressure and you don't do what you don't want to do. Yeah.
Right, very nicely said. I really like that actually. Um, one side, your love for English or literature. Before coming to that, I just want to know uh, Manipur. That's it's a very small state within India. Many of them have not touched upon that place in those times, but these days Northeast, there is a lot of people want to go, and it's beauty and everything because flow of information, people know it and everything. How was it at that point of time? Did you also felt it when you came out of Manipur and the time you were living? How was it? You were also with a mainstream, in India in the sense, and altogether there was a feeling that you are somehow the part that is somehow was there, but it was not really in the touristic part of it.
I grew up in the time at a time when there was a lot of insurgency problem in Manipur. So I can tell you when I was studying, I'm from Churachandpur, but I went to DM College of Commerce and Arts in Imphal. That's the capital of Manipur. This was a period when there was insurgency. There was, anytime after it gets dark, everybody would go. I mean, shops would close. You don't move out after dark. So it was during that period, and you would keep on hearing incidents of some shooting between the army and the underground people. So I grew up in that kind of situation. I mean, in that situation, you can't really talk about tourism and all that. Fortunately, that time has passed. But even when I was in Imphal during my studies, there were occasions when you could actually hear some gunfire. Luckily, it was not near to where I was staying. And the next morning, you would hear that there was some shooting or some between the security forces and the insurgents. So I grew up in that situation. During my time, there was not much prospect for tourism, but luckily that has passed, and now tourism is picking up in the Northeast, in Manipur, and all the other Northeast states. But unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, things have kind of slowed down. And since you brought in this, I just want to put in here that we are going to have India Week Hamburg in November, and I plan to do a promotion for Northeast tourism. I'm already talking to Nagaland, to Manipur, to Mizoram, and to Meghalaya. And I hope there would be some kind of, if possible, some cultural troupe or somebody coming here. It's a beautiful area of India, which not many people, even Indians, have seen. And I'm sure many people, even among the participants here, and even Germans, would really have a good time to enjoy the beauty of the Northeast.
That would be great because you are now also kind of an ambassador of India, of course, but also Northeast, especially Manipur and all. It's a very good thing. So we all look forward to that kind of Northeast special during the India Week as well. Thanks a lot for that efforts. Um, let's move on a bit. English. What is that? So, I mean, why English? What was it that something? Is it something that came because from a, born in a Christian family and with a pastor and all those things? That's what something always with English. Did you go to the church and sing carol songs or choir and things like that, or what? How was about English? What was that love for you and English? How it caught up your dream that you want to do literature?
Well, English, when you talk of English as a language, I mean, it was the most accessible literature you get in India is English, because English is also one of the languages in India. And like my own language, we had very limited books or literature. It's still kind of a young language in that sense, literature wise. So whatever you had to read was mostly available only in English. And also, growing up, our society is a very, when you're a young person, it is a very, how do you say, very communal, and we are very close to each other. Growing up in the church, we were all part of the church choir. We had did a lot of local community services, and I grew up in that kind of society. So as far as community service and that kind of thing is concerned, it is like a part of the Mar Mizo community where I grew up. So everybody participates in some way or the other, in either in the church events, or even in the community at the village level, cleaning up the village and doing social work and that sort of thing. But coming back to literature, yes, I grew up in a family which was, my father was a great reader. He was a pastor, but he loved these books. Like, I remember having all those Earl Sterling Gardner or Sherlock Holmes books. He had all the series, and I'm talking of like late 50s, 60s. He used to subscribe to Reader's Digest, and at the end of the year he would bind them together like 3 4 months in one volume, so they were hardbound, hard cover. And in the house there was this whole shelf filled with Reader's Digest, for example. I mean, they are all having good articles. So I grew up in a house where everybody, my father was a big reader. Even my uncles and most of my cousins were great readers, so we used to pass on these novels. There was a time growing up when we were in school, I would read at least one novel or maybe two novels in a week. So it was for me almost natural, because my relatives, my father, my uncles, everybody was into reading. So I think that developed a love for reading. And when I grew up at that time, I read everything that I could lay my hands on, from comics to novels to, whatever was there. So it was a stage. And I think that gave me the love for reading and for literature.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. That's wonderful. I would like to take the last point before we can have a small interaction with participants, because there are something very interesting you have said. So probably it's intriguing few questions, or maybe some of you who you know very well, who could also share about you something as well. So we would encourage the participants. So serving, I mean, we will come back to that as a service. You are, in IFS, in all those things you are now at this point. But serving and service to the community, serving to the other people, how was it for you? Is that something naturally it came to you, or you had some incident which really touched upon you, and the value of serving others, generally the humanity and those part, is something that led you to who you are today, choosing this service?
If you talk of serving or serving the community, you might have read about the Greater Mizo community as such. We live on a kind of an ethos. For example, there is a word in Mizo called Tlomngaina. Tlomngaina means others before yourself. So that is like a basic tenet of the community which I grew up and lived in. So you are supposed to care for others before you cared for yourself. Of course, that is not always possible, but this was something which people tried to follow. There is an incident like in the village, or house burns down, for example, some accident happens. Then you take it like your duty to help that person to rebuild the house, or contribute financially or physically to build that house. So it's like kind of an ideal, how do I say, ideal thing. But that is one of the guiding thing in the greater community that I grew up in. So as far as service is concerned, everybody was expected to be in some way or the other contribute to the general well-being of the community where I grew up in. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, so the first block I would say is something about Sir's early time, and where he grew up, and what shaped him, the character, and also the things that many people always remember, that what they are today is not about today or last 10 years, but it's about 50 years or back, how they grew up. So we had something. So now I would like to open it up for the audience interaction. So please feel free. Something that you are so intriguing, or something you are something surprised you, or something that you just want to ask the CG sir. Please go ahead, just to make sure to keep it very structured. Please raise your hand either in a physical way, or at least you can use the reaction in the bottom tab in the Zoom. You can raise your hand, so I can see that, and then I can, really call upon who would like to speak on that. And if there are people who know CG sir very well, maybe part of their family, or their close friend circle, if you want to say something, some special information about this great man, please let us know. I mean, we would be more than happy to give you the voice to share with that as well. So we all would be looking forward to that. Okay, the floor is yours. Who would like to start the icebreaker? Yes, Dr. Zaman Ahmed, please go ahead.
Well, there's something, it's wonderful hearing John. I call him John. I met him when we were in Denmark, and it's so lovely to see him. And he's in Hamburg as our Consul General. There's one thing we share, both of us. We come both from the north. He comes from one of the various tribes in Mizoram. I come from the ethnic Assamese tribe. So he was talking about how he grew up, and this vision of the Northeast. I'm sure John has done a lot to, he has said it, that no longer is that insurgency prone, but we are much more open. And he touched upon the Hamburg week, and we will be there. In fact, I'm a retired doctor here in Denmark, but I've decided to showcase the Northeast. And I have a little travel bureau called the Zitos. It basically focused on East India. And it was thanks to the Consul General that he said that I must participate. So we look forward to an interaction with fellow Indians and Germans to showcase our part of India, the Northeast. It's a rich biodiverse area with birding, wildlife, the tribes of the 450 tribes, 250 are there in our region. But anyway, I really look forward. The other thing which I'd like to highlight, which he has mentioned upon, is the community, very communal thing, that it's a very unique bit. It's a very unique, distinct feature anywhere in the Northeast, that you would find this community feeling. And well, thank you, CG, for John, for this wonderful exposure. And we really look forward to rest of our Indians taking all the assistance from you in discovering India and in discovering what Prime Minister Modi has talked about, the East at East policy. There's one more last thing which I have to tell you about this gentleman. I don't know how many of you know, but he's a veteran runner. He's a marathon runner, and if you go out for a walk with him, ensure that you're ready to walk 12 kilometers.
Thank you.
But it's lovely seeing you, John.
Thank you, Dr. Zaman.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Zaman. It's wonderful. I think you have given us a secret of it. So we will come back to that for sure. CG sir, would you like to respond to Dr. Zaman?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Zaman. I met Dr. Zaman in Copenhagen. He's a good friend and he's a great person. He's a retired doctor. So I was still in touch. And he would be the main promoter for the Northeast promotion in India Week Hamburg, to promote the Northeast, because he already runs a very successful tour agency in Copenhagen. So look forward to working with him.
Thank you, sir. And I have somebody, I am extremely sorry, please, if I pronounce it wrong, Jelle Waring, is it right?
It's actually Meenu Gupta. That's somebody else's name from my laptop.
Okay, please go ahead, madam.
Now, first I would like to thank you for this entire meeting that's been brought together, and for the introduction to the CG. That's very nice. I welcome you to Hamburg, John, and I would like to also welcome you for a walk with me. I was given many names in Delhi. I was a regular in Lodi Garden. I used to laugh and say I was more regular than the weather. So, yeah, I would like to walk with you and show you around the Alster and many places. Very beautiful walks around Hamburg.
I think you should ask my wife. She does more walks than me, you know,
Also, we will do that definitely.
kilometers every day. So
I've done a lot of exploration in the last few years, and I would love to take both of you out for long walks.
yeah, thank you very much.
I can assure
Look
you.
forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, madam. Thank you very much for that. So I have a hand here from Lisa. Kiran, I have seen you. Lisa Moomi, but I don't see her picture or face. So Lisa, Madam Lisa, would you like to say something? Okay, so let's move on. Kiran, please go ahead.
Namaste, sir. Welcome to Hamburg. So my name is Kishore, and I live in Hamburg. As of now, I am living. I just moved to India on Sunday, so I'm talking to you from India.
Yeah.
So my question to you would be like, you wear so many hats: a marathon runner, a avid reader, and consulate general. So what's your motivation to start a day? Like, what keeps you going?
What keeps me going, I think, you know, when you work, I mean, I'm privileged to be the Consul General here. And of course, we work to better relations between Germany and India. But unfortunately, because of the lockdown, we can't really meet with people. But my motivation is to do what I can for what the government has entrusted to me, which means a lot of things. You know, it's of course the relationship with the diaspora, with people like you, to keep in touch and let you know that the consulate is there. You know, if you need us in any way, whether it's a consular thing, it could be a private personal thing also. But I would say that that is a big motivation for me to be here and to ensure that things work properly, especially between India and Germany. That is one thing. The relationship with the diaspora, with the with the Indian community, and of course the commercial relations and the political relations also are a part of it. So in the office, we get maybe there's some commercial inquiry from an Indian company or a German company. So these are things, you know, throughout the day, there is some email or something or the other which keeps us busy. And I would say that's the motivation for me to wake up in the morning. Okay, it's another new day, and let's hope the day is good. There's not too much problem. And I would say that's
Thank you.
a motivating factor for me.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks, Kishore. So we can take a question or two. Still, we have a time for this block. Anyone would like to ask? Yes, Bhatia ji, please. Your microphone, please. Yes, go ahead, sir.
So, thank you very much for the information, especially to get to know about the small village where you are born, Mr. Ruolngul, and also the life you had over there. We have a very less information from this part of the country, from east, far east part of India, because from the tourist point of view, it was not possible to travel over there. What is the situation now over there? Is it possible to go there as a tourist and stay there?
Yes,
as in other parts of India?
Yeah. It's the situation is good now. I mean, it's not like the late 80s and early 90s when you had a lot of incidents, security incidents. Now it is very much open, and the infrastructure, I'm happy to say, are also developing. I mean, the problem was like you didn't have many good hotels for tourists to stay and things like that. But unfortunately, the lockdown and the COVID situation is the one thing that has, I think things were developing very nicely, but this has pulled us back for, you know, now it's going on for a year now. And I hope this thing gets over soon, but it's very much open. And I would ask you to visit my state, Mizoram, Meghalaya, all these places, beautiful places. You know, I mean, it's a part of India, and you will find that it's very, very different from what you are used to if just going by the Taj Mahal, Rajasthan or Delhi.
Yeah, yeah.
Typical Indian tourist scene, it's very much different. Dr. Zaman can tell you more. He organizes this river cruise of the Brahmaputra, for example.
Okay.
Class boats, you can contact him. You can go on a river cruise for a week, get to see the tea estates of Assam, go on a walk, go cycling. He arranges all those things for many of his clients for the past few years. So things like that, you can go on trekking. The natural beauty is breathtaking. You should plan a visit
Okay.
sometime.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Bhatiaji. Dr. Zaman, I'll come back to you for that before we move into the next. But I have Dr. Amalji has raised the hand. So Amalji, please.
Again, it's been a pleasure listening to you, Dr. Bala, and also listening to the Consul General, Mr. Ruolngul. It's been very, very interesting to hear the background, his stories, and the time in Northeast. I have been to Imphal, and I was absolutely, I was at the Imphal Medical College, and I was absolutely amazed to see the beauty of the place. And particularly, I remember still the landing at the Imphal airport. That's really a wonderful feeling when the small Fokker Friendship plane goes down to this airport and with all the mountains jumping at you from side. But I believe that this is a wonderful place for tourists, and it's a very peaceful area. Absolutely, right now it's a very peaceful area, and people are so friendly, absolutely friendly people. And what I was very much impressed there was that how liberated the women were even at those days. It was a long time back, and I think it's now even more. These women, they were really at the forefront. So that's what I like very much. And I hope that we will soon have during the India Week, we will have a representation from this beautiful part of our country, also to their culture, their dances, and their cultural presentations can be so exciting, so nice. I'll be looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mukhopadhyay. You spoke of the Fokker flight, landing in Imphal.
Yes.
So I think you're talking of the 70s.
Yes, a long time back. That's right.
A lot has changed since then.
Yes.
I think hopefully for the better.
Yeah.
Flight, I must tell you, when you land at Imphal, you fly over the Loktak Lake,
Yeah.
It's a beautiful sight. Yeah.
It's
Just
beautiful.
the airport is beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Amalji. So before I go to the next block, I will give the word to Dr. Zaman because he wants to say a thing. And then after that, we'll go to the next block.
Yeah, this is in reference to Mr. Ashok Bhatia's query about the safety and security of these areas. As the CG has mentioned, and I grew up there. I'm about 10 years older to him, but I grew up in those days, and we had these issues. But that scenario is far gone. My children have not seen it also. And just to reinforce what I'm saying, I just had last February, I had a Danish group of birders from the Danish Ornithologic Society. And we went 3 weeks into Assam in the northeast. And we went into Arunachal right up to Tawang, almost near the Chinese border. And of course, these were birders. So we stayed mostly in rather basic units. But on the way in Tawang, in Dirang, in Tenga Valley, you get reasonably good accommodation. I wouldn't say they are 5-star, but you get good service, in terms of. But more than that, I think what you absorb is the kind of unmatched, pristine beauty, the kind of culture shock that you get, I tell my Danish friends, I took once a Danish friend and an Indian friend who's never visited, and both of them were equally fascinated by the kind of cuisine, the kind of dress, the kind of language. It changes every 50 kilometers. Believe it or not, it changes every 50 kilometers. I look more a mainland Indian because I come from the valley. But answering to be very brief with the question is, as far as security, we have fairly good secure services, and in fact, we are having services through the up to Myanmar through the borders in More, which was one time where you could buy vegetables and grenades in AK-47. Those days are gone. So Ashok Bhatia, I look forward to, I don't know, are you from Hamburg? But I really look forward to interacting with you when I'm there at Hamburg in November.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Zaman. Thank you, Bhatia ji. I think we will move on, but anyway,
Okay.
during the next time we will get back. So thank you very much. I think, again, this is exactly it's all about. We have probably in general mainstream. It's not that time when, people are referring to certain part. And now today in the 10 minutes, we could get an impression of the, Northeast and that part of the world. For many of us probably would not have been there as well. And so it's not just about, some PowerPoint presentation, but it's here about the real spirit of it. And this is something that comes from them within. So I think that's very, very special. Let's move on, sir. So now coming to that, now you studied English literature and, that part of it. But we have heard you have written a lot of books and you are a very avid writer as well, and also reader and writer, and that's something that consumes most of your time, in that sense that you are just, if you go into that reading or writing, then you are just around you, everything is forgotten, something like that. What has captivated you into that world? What is that? Where did you get this, that you want to be a writer, or it just happened, or were there any inspiration or school teachers or some books you read through the authors were inspiration? Can you give us an insight into that?
Bala, I must say that I agree with you. I'm a great reader, but certainly not a great writer. I haven't written any books or any such thing, But I do have a blog where I occasionally blog about, whatever comes to mind. There was a time when I just love writing in the sense to put my impression of my experiences into writing. So that's why I started a blog, a small blog. I don't know. There was a time when I had more time, officially. Now, as you become more senior, you have less time for your personal things. But initially, I used to write quite a lot, just a short, maybe 1-2 pages. My impressions, like I started writing when I was posted in Mozambique. I wrote quite a lot. Then we went to Tokyo. There also, I started a series of what I call Japan Diaries, and just would write my impression. That was really my personal. I tried to bring out what I felt into the writing, into the blog. So I do have a blog, which I kind of try to keep updating, but unfortunately I haven't had the time, and it's not been updated for quite some time. The last update I did was when I was I did one update just after the coronavirus and the lockdown, my impressions on what happened, because I recalled some incidents, some not traumatic, but some disaster which took place in Tokyo, and I kind of linked that to the corona situation. I wrote about that, but I also do have written something which I have not put in my blog. But I don't know. I just like writing. I don't know how people, whether it's readable or not. That is up to the reader to judge. But I do like writing, and I wish I could be a writer, obviously. But that's in the future. But I'm sorry, I haven't written any book. I wish I did, though.
I think as we all know, in the short period of time, a very humble and a very modest person. So I'm pretty sure, I have to be very honest, I haven't looked at your blog for sure, but writing a book and writing a blog, I'm sure blog is even an avid writer. So I think these days blog is a book. So I'm pretty sure you are going to, and actually you are updating on your personal experiences of your diplomatic career all over. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be very, very interesting.
It has nothing to do but with my official thing. It's just my personal observation. It's
Right. That's very,
personal.
very nice, and we will look forward to that. One point I think I actually wanted to ask is, actually, it was touched upon also by Amolji, which I also had it in my note. Northeast per se, and also in specifical Manipur, is a matriarchal society. I mean, it's very, very well known that the women are positively, not negatively, positively in terms of controlling the family and the structure and also the leadership, those kind of things. How do you can you give us an history for that? Is it something that has been coming for a long time, or there is something that's a movement or something that made sure this happened, or so that it's something very, very interesting. It's not something in all India and also the outside the world. This part is very, very special, and especially for the Manipur, because you are coming from that. Can you give us something in a look through, what is that happened there? Is it all about continuous traditionally it has happened, or is that something different?
I think, Bala, Manipur actually is not a metrical society. It's actually patriarchal. But then women have equal rights. I mean, if you compare it to other parts of India, women have always been respected in society or in whatever we do. But I think if you ask the women, they may not fully agree with me, but it is not actually a matriarchal society. It's a more of a patriarchal society. Matriarchal society you find in Meghalaya, among the Khasis especially. Even the laws of inheritance and all that, the property, for example, goes to the women, not to the sons. Whereas in Manipur, even in Mizoram, even in Nagaland, as far as I know, it's actually a patriarchal society. But having said that, the women have more or less equal rights. Even in society, they can speak out and say what they want, and they are also treated equally. I mean, like simple things like going out, maybe in the night, or even in doing things in the community. They do have equal rights as compared to, say, other parts of India. In that sense, yes. Women
Okay.
are more equal than many parts of India, but it's not really a matriarchal society, apart from the Khasis or societies in Meghalaya.
Right. Thank you, sir. Into your career as a career diplomat, how it happened? Could you just, from the college, yeah, you studied, and what was your plan from the college? You wanted to go into the job, or you just, how did it come that you wanted to write the UPSC exam or ICS exam, and you want to get into the IFS as a part, or generally getting into this service? What was it that motivated you? Or it was an easy decision, you just wanted and you went there, or you went through other lines and then came back to this after you were not satisfied with other things? Can you take us through to this part of your career path?
See, as I said, I grew up in a part of India, part from Manipur. And while growing up, even I would say, was still, when I went to the university to college also, I mean, I really had no dream that one day I would even be in Delhi, not to speak of so many countries that I have been privileged to be in. But I think one big factor was economically, there was no job. I mean, you couldn't easily get anything to do in Manipur, in a state like Manipur. There was not much prospect. I mean, as you grow up, once you finish your graduation, you need to think of your future. So I think that played a big part in my writing the exam, the UPC exam, and other things. Also, I had an uncle who also advised me and my parents also that I should write for this exam, which was the UPC exam. So I think it was in 1984 or 85 that I came to Delhi, because he was already settled. He was already working in one of the ministries in Delhi. So I came there and I appeared for the civil services exams. I took a little bit of coaching also. I was in Delhi. stayed with my uncle. Then I passed the prelims. I even went for the written exam also, but unfortunately I couldn't get through that. But those days, at the same time, there was also another exam from the UPSC, which was the assistant grade. So I appeared for that on the side. My main concentration was on the civil services, but I also appeared for the other one, and I cleared that one with quite a good grade. And when you appear for that assistance exam, you know, you have a choice. You write a choice which ministry or which you want to join in case you get through that exam. So the foreign ministry, the Ministry of External Affairs, was number one on my choice. And they normally give you your choice if you score some good marks in the exam. So I think I didn't do too badly, and that's how I came to join the Ministry of External Affairs.
Sir, may I interrupt you at this point? Why is Ministry of External Affairs? Because there could have been many other ministries. What was that something that was attracted to you that you want to join the MEA?
You see, at that stage, I had really had no idea that you had the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you had the chance to go abroad and all that. It was just, again, it was my uncle who I asked him, and you had this choice. There was a line where you put a tick mark. This is your number one choice, number two, number three, number four, and so on. You, I think, were given a choice of maybe 5, 6 ministries to join in case you got through the exam. So basically, on his advice, that you know, I put that as my number one choice, which I fortunately could get. Yeah.
So do you? So now looking back, it was the right choice, probably even if you would have known. So you have never ever regretted that you chose this choice.
No, I have never regretted it, and you know, I really enjoy the work that I do, and it's been a privilege for me meeting so many people, getting to experience different societies, and you know, it's been a very enriching experience for me, and I have never regretted this choice. Yeah.
So let's move on. What was your first posting abroad, and how was it? What was your mental preparedness in the sense, as an young diplomat going out? How was it for you, and what was your experience? Because always this first is always something special for everyone. So how was it for you?
My first posting was in Morocco, in Rabat. So we were young. I mean, I just got married. In fact, I just before I went on the posting, when my parents heard that I was going to this place, then they said you have to get married, you know. So I went home, got married, and with my wife, my young bride, came to Delhi, stayed for about 2-3 weeks with my uncle. And then we came to Rabat. Those days, the route was from Delhi to Paris, then Paris to by Air India, and then Paris to Rabat. I think it was by Air France. So for me, you know, imagine a person like me. For me, even Delhi was so far away, it was like beyond my dream. And then suddenly I'm there, and then I'm going out to the bigger world. So it was, I really didn't know what to expect also. We landed in Paris, and we had some kind of a mix up getting, because my flight was the next day, to the connecting flight to Rabat. So we had to stay overnight in Paris. We landed a bit late. I asked around, nobody spoke English, you know, that kind of thing, but somehow we managed and landed up in Rabat. But that was a very new thing for me, but a very good experience. We have good memories of the place because one is my son was born in Morocco, in Rabat in 1990. And it was, of course, a learning experience for me, and I learned a lot from that posting. I basically did the accounts in that place, which has helped me throughout my career, because that's the basic. Like I said, I'm really bad at maths, but once it becomes, it's something you're kind of forced to do, then you have to learn. So I learned the basics. I think if I hadn't done accounts, I would find it very difficult to do what I'm doing now. So at least I know what's going on as far as accounting goes, you know. to some extent because of that first experience.
One thing actually put forward, you said you went home, you got married, and then, you both of you boarded the plane.
Yeah.
So I suppose you knew whom you are going to marry even before, because if I look at certain other, no offense to other religions, but it's not going to be that easy to really select a bride or a groom. It's going to take some time for various reasons. It's not just like that, okay, I go home, I get married and moving. So how was it for you that?
No, my wife and I are from the same village. So we grew up, I mean, her house was just, 100 meter, 200 meters from my house. We have basically known each other since we were small kids. Went to the same church, we were in the same choir. And I would say, I mean, okay, she was my girlfriend, I was going to marry her anyway. The only thing was that, I mean, I didn't have any money. I thought maybe I should go on a posting, make a little saving, and then go on a home, live and get married, that sort of thing. But parents, you're going out, young men going out, so you have to get married. So anyway.
And especially young man going really out to a place, that's right. So they have their own concern, and that's a very charming boy. Sure. Okay. So in your whole diplomatic career till now, I would say you have been to different places of different, let's say, developed stages. Morocco, or it can be Italy, or it can be Japan, or Mozambique. Vietnam, Denmark recently. How I'm pretty sure these are all different places. The embassies are differently structured. The level is different, and the work, whatever, it's all going to be somewhere, in a different level of the priority of the country, India's relation and everything. But what's something? Can you give few things that you would say you have learned from working in this career so long? Something that you say. That you have taken something for your life also, that you have learned something, that, and also something you really felt that's going to really motivate others and inspire others, that something that's really life changing experiences, or once calling it, or something that made you even humble and modest in terms of looking at nature or looking at human beings, or generally life per se.
Bala, what would I say? That's a very philosophical question, I think. And not
And
very.
we also know that you are a very philosophical person. We also know
Put
that
it
you
on,
like
put it
philosophy.
on. Yeah, but it has been interesting. I love our tenure is normally 3 to 4 years. And one of the things I have loved about this job is that there are pros and cons to everything. For example, for my kids, they had to be, just when they started making friends and in school and outside, then you had to leave and they had to start new at the school and all that. But what I loved was the different culture. For example, Morocco was, it's a Muslim country, it's a kingdom, so it was our first posting also. So I didn't really interact with the local people apart from the local staff. But we came to Italy, for example. It's a very nice place. People are so polite, and the culture is totally different from Morocco. After that, we went to Mozambique. That's south, used to be one of the poorest countries in the world. But the people are so nice, culturally, they were so friendly. I got on very well with them. By that time, the kids were also a little bit bigger, and we could go out and mix with the local Mozambicans. So I enjoyed learning from their culture, though they have a hard life. But as human beings, I have also been to Tokyo, one of the most developed places in the world. But if you ask me who is happier, probably the Mozambicans are happier in life than the Japanese. They have everything, but what I have learned is that it's not money or riches which makes you a happy person. It is, it's, I don't know how to explain it. it is the society you grow up in, the support system you have from friends, from families, which I think is very, very important. And also, I think you need to have faith. For me, what I have seen my life, I think what you call uh, the basic of how I live my life on a daily level, even at an official, on a private level, is I think my faith has kept me going on so far now. And I try to look at everything positively. So I would say from the societies that I have been in, I have learned from each and every society. Every society is different, but the basic thing I've learned is that ultimately we are all human beings. And it is not your riches or what the money you have, that's not very important. It is your relationship, either with your family, with friends you have, good friends. If you can keep or make good friends, keep them and keep them for life. I've been still in touch with some people, not everybody, in every place, because we deal with the public a lot. We meet and deal with hundreds, maybe thousands of people. But out of those, I have only, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 friends whom I'm still in touch with, even from my second posting, Milan, for example. We still tell each other, small personal things, family things. So those things are important, your relations, human relationship.
Wonderful. Tell something about your Tokyo experience. I know something horrible and really, beyond human, let's say imagination has happened. This, during that time actually, that a Tohoku earthquake happened when you were at the mission and responsible person there, and you had to send your family back. But then obviously you had a responsibility, and especially as a country's responsible person, you have to be there and taking back, even though with the dangers. How was it, and what actually was going through in your mind, and what was it coordinating things, and something that probably was completely you have been shaken, and also the people there and the country in itself?
Yeah, the Tohoku earthquake, that was 11 March 2011. I think, I don't remember exactly, it was 9 point something on the Richter scale, which is beyond your imagination, and it went on for 6 minutes. I mean, the first day, the second day we landed in Tokyo, we had an earthquake. For us, that's not a very common thing. The whole building was shaking. In fact, I was in office. It was my first day in office. Things started to shake, but everybody was quite cool. I was almost panicking. I have to run out. What do we do? But it went off after some time. So, we were there for, I think, more than, it was like 3.5 years we completed when the Tohoku earthquake happened on 11 March. I still remember it was almost 3 o'clock. I was in my office. It started shaking. And then I thought, okay, another earthquake. Okay, it'll be over. So I didn't really pay much mind. But this was totally something else. I looked out the window. Everybody had gone out and it was still shaking. Normally it lasts for 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute if it's a very strong earthquake. Even after 1 minute, it was still shaking like anything. So I saw my ambassador had already gone out. So I also went out. And then it was like the end of the world. The trees were going up and down. I could see in the distance the skyscrapers were swaying like this. You could actually see them swaying. And people were crying. Even our Japanese staff, the ladies were crying. These are people who are used to earthquakes all their life. So it went on for 6 minutes. We have a new building at Chancery in Tokyo, which is earthquake resistant. It is built on, I forgot what is the term. There is a base, and you could actually see the building going like this. And it's very difficult to express, and it went on for 6 minutes. Even the electric poles, you could see them moving like this. So that was the situation. And after it finished, we came back, we saw the TV. Then we learned that the Fukushima nuclear reactor had been affected. And then immediately there was the fear of the nuclear radiation, all those things. and then everything got jammed, traffic, everything went like quiet after the 6 minutes. You will not believe, like Tokyo is a very busy city. Embassy was in the middle of the city with, traffic and everything, and it was like eerily quiet. And then things started, people started shouting, the traffic started, and everything was jammed. My wife, by the way, we had a cousin come in the previous day. They had gone to Kawasaki for shopping. So they got stuck there. I tried to go there. I went in the office car, couldn't get anywhere. So I managed to pick them up only at 4 a.m. in the morning the next day. So things like that. And after some time, especially the radiation thing came, and finally we had to send back the whole family, all family, kids, and just a few of us stayed back in the embassy. And I mean, it was not a very nice time during those days. Immediately, the water bottles went off the shelves. There was a shortage of water. The families were repatriated back to India. I was the head of chancery in the embassy at that stage, so that is a lot of responsibility. And then we had the NDRF, the National Disaster Relief, forces also coming in from India. They really helped the Japanese. They went to Sendai and helped with the evacuation. So things like that. And all the Indians in Japan started panicking. The calls started coming. We opened a 24 hours hotline. There were calls from families back in India. There were calls from journalists asking about the latest situation, things like that. So we had to calm them down and try and repatriate people, especially people living in Fukushima area and to the north of Japan. So we arranged for all these flights by Air India. Air India would come and pick up, and we had to make sure that families were properly taken care of, brought to the airport and things like that. And there was a lot of query from the government, from everybody concerned. So we had to man this hotline for 24 hours. We took turns doing this duty. We even had bottled mineral waters brought in from India on the Air India flight. So it was like that because nobody felt safe drinking the water from Japan. So we had water from Indian water in the embassy, which we distributed among those of the few of us who were there to man the station as it was. So it was quite traumatic in a way, but looking back, it was not so bad. I mean, the radiation was the biggest fear. And the Japanese brought out this bulletin every half an hour. How much is the radiation in Tokyo? How much is it in Fukushima? Things like that. So we would constantly watch that. I mean, we wouldn't go out, we would stay inside, and we kept a constant watch. Of course, it did go up, but after some days, it also went down. But looking back, I mean, it was not so bad. It was, at that time, you didn't know what was going to happen. Your family had left you, you were there alone, and there were all this Indian community and others who needed help, who were also panicking. But
yeah, it's an amazing experience. I mean, it's yeah, a few minutes you have to say, but I'm pretty sure if you have to write a book or a film a script, I mean, I'm pretty sure there is enough to do. Okay, so I think with this, I would like to open it up for our audience and participants. There is something very interesting in that last chapter. Sir was telling about his learnings of certain things he learned, and also his experiences over different places, and the last with a uh, earthquake, and how it was. Sometimes we don't really see the diplomats going around the world, but what is the behind the story, how they are there as a lifeline for all of us, the diaspora, and also people. When something happens, they are the ones finally there to help us. At that point of time, they're the god, if I can use the word. So I think we all need to be very grateful to all the staffs and everyone in the missions all over the world. They are the ones saviors for us. And so sometimes we only think when we are in trouble. We don't think when we are in good times. We don't even care. I think we have to change that part as well. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please, the floor is open. Who would like to interact with the CG sir for the next, let's say 5-10 minutes? We can take time. Please go ahead. Who would like to start? So yes, Victor, please. And then Krishna, I'll come back to you. Victor is on board. Victor, please.
Sorry, I just had to find the microphone.
Good to see you, Karan. Yes,
yeah,
Victor.
we've been listening avidly to your stories. It's a Consul General. It's very interesting. We spent some time in Kaziranga, and in Assam. We also went up to Tawang. This was some years ago. Yeah. But I would love to go to Manipur. I mean, Manipur has a kind of a fairy tale associated with it. You know, the name is so nice. Are there national parks there now that one can go to, stay at, and be taken around? Because we both love wildlife.
I think again for that, Dr. Zaman is the person to ask. In Manipur, I can find out. I mean, we have natural parks and all that, but I don't know if there are any good organized kind of tours. I'm sure there are. It's not something that I have been keeping myself updated with.
Dr. Zaman.
The Manipur tourism, I'll ask them this specific, this query also. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you. Dr. Zaman, if you want to just compliment on that.
Yeah, Mr. Victor, so nice to know that you've been to Tawang and Kaziranga. The Northeast is, as you know, they're full of biodiversity. It's one of the richest hotspots. And there are quite a few of them. But in Manipur, what the CG had mentioned about the Loktak lake is the largest freshwater lake in India, actually. And that's one place we recommend, as tourist operators, that we recommend honeymooners to go there because there's a special deer that appears once in a while. So that's the one which I know of at the moment. But there's another one that we're trying to curate, even for fellow Indians, is the history in Manipur, the Anglo-Manipur wars. There are 3-4 Commonwealth war memorials there, Kohima and in Guwahati and in Imphal. And these were fascinating battles that were fought. There was also that famous Kangla fort in Manipur, in Imphal, historical, full of history. And this is something which you could experience. And of course, if you're talking about the other wildlife sanctuaries, they're more in Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland, and in Assam, we have the Namsai and the Pake, which is famous for its tigers. And then we have Dibru Saikwar, which is famous for one of the birding sites. And
okay. Thanks a lot, Dr. Zaman, for that. I'm pretty sure Victor will, Victor in the chat, Dr. Zaman has given his details. So, I mean, website as well, you can have a look. So I have now few questions, sir. I'll first start with Krishna, then Soumya, then Ajayji. Krishna, go ahead.
Good evening, Consul General. My name is Dr. Krishna Nagarajan. I have only one question. It's you as a Consul General carry a lot of respect, and also you represent the country India. So you travel a lot across the world. And your family is also always with you. You said you have your daughter and also the wife. They always follow you, or they are coming with you. What is the impact of this culturally as well as in a family? Because you always travel.
Okay, thank you, Krishna.
Is it like in a positive sense?
That's a very interesting question. I think it was most hard on my children. They were with us till they finished high school. After that, they had to go to university. My son and daughter finished school in Tokyo, after which we had to leave my son for his university studies in India, which he did. And the same thing, I mean, they were with us till high school, till 12th grade, always with us, wherever we were, whether back in India or whether we were traveling outside. But that's an interesting question, because, like I grew up in, like I tried to explain, in a community which is very close-knit and everything. So I I know who I am culturally or as a person. I know that I grew up in this kind of society and these are the values which I have. Whereas for my kids, you know, they grew up in different societies. And for them, the question, who am I, is very difficult to answer. We have tried to, you know, inculcate them in them the moral values, of course, and also culturally speaking. So in my house, we only speak in my language, in Mar. So I mean, I have told them, look, you are a Mar, you are a Marmizo, but you are outside. I mean, if you look at me, frankly, I don't even look Indian, but I carry an Indian passport. So I used to tell them, look, you will grow up one day, you will have an Indian passport. People will look. First thing is, you say I'm Indian, but when you say Indian, you associate it with certain, you know, things. As an Indian is an Indian, but a Northeast Indian or somebody like me, I'm fully an Indian, very proud to be so. But my society, my culture is a little bit different from what you call an Indian society. So for my kids, it's quite hard. It's very not easy to explain. But I'm happy that they grew up to be quite decent human beings. But they still have this problem mingling in my society also, because they live with their friends are all from my society, but they did not grow up with experiencing the same things which their friends have experienced, either back in Manipur or even in Delhi. Even kids growing up in Delhi have a different experience. So that's a very interesting question, and I think that's something you may have to ask my children how it affected them. But I don't think it has all been positive, but I hope it's not too bad for them. But
Okay.
you can understand how difficult it must have been for them to fit in and to just understand to yourself who I am, because that's very important as a human being. I have to be sure of who I am. There are certain things I do or can do or cannot do, but it
So,
all comes from how you grew up, your values and all that, you know.
Thank you.
Very
because
complicated question, but I
you
don't
have
know if
to
that
sacrifice a
explains
lot
it.
here.
Thank you very much, Krishna. Thanks for that. Now I go to Soumya. Soumya, you wanted to ask a question, please.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, CG sir. So I would like to ask, you have been to different parts of the world, but what is the one thing you still miss from India? And what is the thing you always bring back from your trip to India?
Thank you, Soumya.
You know, however strange it is, I sometimes I say that I miss the kiosks in India. I mean, things are too quiet here, you know, sometimes. You land in India, the moment you come out of Indira Gandhi airport, you know, I mean, there is life in India, you know, despite all the queues and all the problems we have, but there is this feeling of community. So I mean, once you're there, sometimes you get annoyed by a lot of things, but after I'm a long time away from India, I always miss that chaos. But there is a system within that madness, you know, that's something I miss. And what we bring back from India, basically, you know, mostly, if you ask me, it's mostly food. I don't know, because we have our own traditional food, vegetables, things back in home in Manipur, which you don't even get in Delhi. But nowadays, because of this greater connectivity, you can get all those things even in Delhi now. But what the major part of our baggage when we came back from India used to be all sorts of different types of food, which you won't get anywhere else in the world. You know, for us, that's home. That's what we normally eat at home. You know, it's not like for example, we don't eat too much masala. So we have our own way of preparing food and all. So we normally bring back a lot of that stuff.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And now I have Amal, Ajay, and Gautam is on board. So Amalji, please go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to refer to that question about the national parks in Manipur. There is one very important park, Kaibul Lamjau National Park, and this park is the only place where you have got the dancing deer, Sangai.
Yeah, the bro antler deer. Yes.
Yeah, that's the only place where you have, and this is, I think, is a floating national park. Must be a wonderful place to be.
Thanks a lot, Amalji, for this reference. You have searched down and then you have pinned down. Thank you very much for that. Ajayji, you have raised a point. Please go ahead. Ajay Manochaji, can you hear us? Okay. If not, then Gautam, please go ahead.
Thank you, Bala. So good evening, CG sir.
Good evening.
I have a question regarding our integration. Like you said, and also we see that we Indian people are trying to integrate all around the world, trying to learn the things good or bad from different places, mostly good. But when I look to those seven sisters in the Northeast, I'm still thinking that we are not so well integrated, though we have been improving in this in the last decades. So what are your thoughts about it? What could be done to make this more integrated society? And there are a lot of good things, like I learn a lot about the bioagriculture. I have some family those are living there, the way of lifestyle, like eating in the evening quite early, not like in Delhi eating at 11 o'clock in the night. So all those good habits, how can we bring into the normal society from Northeast part to our regular part of the India? What are your thoughts on it?
You are right. I think it. You know, I think we don't study enough about the Northeast in the textbooks, for example. And I agree with you. The larger part of India doesn't really know about the Northeast. One is we also look different, and culturally also things are quite different. So that also brings a kind of bias against people who look like me. Anything happens, we have the feeling that we are treated differently. But if you actually know people from Manipur, Mizoram, and all these places, Meghalaya, we are more than 100%. We feel ourselves more than 100% Indians, and people are also very patriotic. But the other parts of India, I think, sometimes don't realize that how much our Indianness is rooted within the system, in our psyche also. So there is a feeling, just because you don't look like a typical Indian, that, okay, he's not Indian enough, kind of a thing. I think you need to integrate more of Northeast history into the textbooks also, at least at the school level, at some stage. It doesn't have to be a big part, but something which emphasizes that it is a part of India, and they're all brothers and sisters. And at this stage, you know, you mentioned about Manipur, the history of Manipur. I think Dr. Zaman mentioned that. For example, the Battle of Kohima, Battle of Imphal, is considered the most important battle of Second World War.
Yes.
I don't know how many people know that. It was rated by the BBC as the most important battle of the Second World War.
True.
So, I mean, that's important. Subhash Chandra Bose also came up to Imphal, to Moirang. There is a big INA memorial in Moirang. That is just near this park which Dr. Mukhopadhyay spoke of.
Yeah.
And that is in this Loktak Lake, for example. And when I grew up, you know, my area, the place I grew up in, was where the Japanese came. They occupied my area also during the Second World War. My grandfather had a lot of interesting stories to tell about that. And when we grew up, we actually had those Japanese helmets and you know, remnants of the Second World War. They were just lying around in the jungles, in the forest, and there would be trenches dug when those battles were fought. So there are so many interesting places like that. Historically also, you will find, if you visit those places, and if you're a history buff, I think you'll there are so many things, interesting things about these places, especially about the battle. And the cemetery in Kohima, for example, it's beautiful. We also have a cemetery in Imphal, the war cemetery, which is equally beautiful and very, very touching. You know, the sign, just you see those tombstones of the people who gave their lives in the Second World War. It's a very, very emotional, touching experience, just visiting those places.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks a
very
lot.
much, sir. So I think it
Thank
was
you very
for
much.
me to take away was like integrate the education system and nurture the next generation. I think that is a very great idea to integrate. Thank you very much, sir, for such a nice view.
Thank you, Gautam. So now, Julie, please.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Consul General, and thank you for sharing your private insights of your life with us. This is very interesting. So I would like to catch up with this and ask you a very personal question. So you must have experienced great support from your wife, you know, traveling with you, following you to all these places around the globe. And my question would be, what are your common hobbies? You know, how do you spend your free time together in all these different places around the world?
Thank you, Yuli.
Yeah, you are right. You know, what I'm able to do is all 100% due to my wife. She is actually the one who works harder than me, you know, keeping up the family, keeping up the place. Whatever I can do is only because of her, to be very frank. Plus, she is a wonderful wife. She cooks, I mean, very well. About what we do in our free time is, since the last 5, 6, 7 years, we take a lot of walk. Walking is, especially after the pandemic, it's the one thing that you can still do. And almost every day we go on long walks. I love my jogging, so sometimes I go off on some direction jogging, but mostly we go on long walks together. In other places also, we normally have this small circle of personal friends apart from the official friends and all that. So that is how we we pass the time, either in our posting or back home in India. My wife, by the way, is a very sociable person. So she loves company much more than me. I'm more of an introvert type of person, you know. I'm happy if I have a good book or some good music, more or less. But for my wife, it's important to have a circle of friends. And if not, we mostly go on walks together, long walks. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Siji sir. Thanks to everyone. We are reaching the end. It's 8 p.m. The time has run like that, or really it flew. From my side, the last question, very interesting. For almost 4 years in Tokyo, you are the liaison officer of His Holiness Dalai Lama. So this is something, a special moment, and it's not just one time and two time. You are 4 years. You had that really, something of many people in life really would like to, have that one session sometime, some part of their lifetime opportunity. How was it for you? How touching was? How was this great person of this, that humanity-filled person? How was it to being that your personal feeling and closer to him, and how was being close to him?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I was privileged to be the liaison officer for the Dalai Lama in 4 years in Tokyo. So whenever he used to come to visit Japan, I was the person who would go at the airport and receive him and then see him off. This was something that I used to do. And I can tell you, he really is such a nice man, such a simple person, always smiling. There is an aura about him, once you sit with him, you feel it's like very peaceful. Always loves like a small child. He will just come and touch you on the hand or something and cut some jokes, some very harmless joke, and always very peaceful to be with him. In fact, I first met him in my second posting in Milan. He happened to come, and I was one of those who received him at the airport. And after that, after many, many years, then I had the privilege of, receiving and seeing him off in Tokyo. And after the first time, of course, he didn't recognize me or recall. When I met him again in Tokyo, of course, I did remember, because it was one of the big things that happened to me in Milan. But after the second time, I mean, he was so nice. He would say, "Oh, Mr. John, you're here again. Why did you have to come? You didn't have to come, you know." But then we would sit, and maybe before he went to his hotel, we would have some tea together sometimes. And of course, all the Tibetans, they worship him as a god. And there would be long queue of Tibetans wherever he went, you know, trying to get an audience with him, very respectful. And it was indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be just near him and, you know, just receive him. But I can say it was very nice. It was
So are you still in touch with His Holiness?
No, I'm not.
Okay, but I'm sure he will recognize you if you meet him.
I hope so. I don't know. He meets thousands of people every day, you know. So
but in Tokyo, you are the point man. So I'm pretty sure, you know, he's not. But yeah, thanks very much, Consul General, sir. It's certainly a great privilege and honor for me. And I'm sure the participants had, you know, as I said, 1.5 hours flew like anything. And I cannot deny this last word because, you know, I can deny anyone, but I cannot deny Arunaji. So Arunaji has wanted to ask something. So she has raised the hand. So I have to, you know, give that opportunity. Arunaji, please.
Yeah, hello. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay, thank you. Just to add something, I'm from the Publicity, Information and Cultural Wing of the Consulate. And I just want to add something to what Dr. Saman said about Manipur. Manipur is known as the Switzerland of India and Nagaland as the Switzerland of the East. So 2 good reasons to visit this place. And I would like to thank the Consul General, who's my boss, for the very candid, thought-provoking, and inspiring dialogue. A lot to learn from you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Aruna.
Thank you, Arunaji. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for this episode of Wednesday Dialogue Series. And we will be meeting you all, and very much looking forward to the next Wednesday Dialogue Series is already planned. It's on 31st of March, 6:30 p.m. As always, it's being a Wednesday as well. And of course, the guest will be always something surprise till sometime before we are not going to tell, but it's going to be a very interesting guest. And you would not have imagined that person, and very latest information would be also shared during the talk, something which you all will be somehow or involved in this year when India is celebrating India at 75. So please earmark your calendar for 31st of March, and very much looking forward to meet you all. And with this last words, wish you a very nice evening. Enjoy the sunny and spring for the next few days. And all well, and take care, stay safe. Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.